Welcome to Nate's Studio Desk, the place where you can come ask questions and get helpful advice on all topics related to architecture and design. If you would like to stay up to date with all the videos that are coming out, please remember to subscribe and hit that bell notification. For this tutorial, we are using a floor plan that one of my students sent me that was running into a couple of issues exporting this and importing it into Illustrator to make a couple additional edits in there. So for this video, we're going to go over some rule of thumbs on how to prepare the file in Rhino, how to set the line weight in Rhino, and then how to prepare it to bring it into Illustrator to do some additional cleanup if you would like to do that. This is the floor plan here that was sent to me, and they actually modeled this in SketchUp and then imported it into Rhino and then exported it into Illustrator to clean up the line work. So I'm going to demonstrate all the issues that come up with trying to export what is here, which is a series of how it imported was a series of what are called poly surfaces, which are actual surfaces. That's how the SketchUp and Rhino file functioned. And they're also in a series of groups. So when I first got this was in a series of groups. So you need to make sure to ungroup this. But right now, this is just a series of poly surfaces. And so let's keep that in mind. And so when I come here, I'm going to first go to Adobe PDF and I'm going to go to 11 by 17. And then I'm going to make sure that the vector output is selected, a display color. You can also do black and white if you'd like. And also want to make sure that this is in the landscape view, and then scroll down and then set the scale. In this case, 1/8 fits the sheet pretty well. And all these other settings for right now, don't need to worry about them. I'm going to print this and we'll give this the number 3. Save it. And now let's open it in Illustrator. So come to Illustrator, Plan 3. This is the plan, and as you see, it's in the portrait mode. So I can select this sheet and come up here and then turn it to landscape mode. And I'm sure there's a way to import this correctly, but it did not. So for right now, I'll have to rotate it. The first thing to know is you don't want to place and embed it because then it recognizes it as an image. Sometimes it doesn't work. Another thing you'll notice is sometimes when you'll click on something, it clicks on the whole image itself. And then in that case, you would have to right click and hit release clipping mask. So for instance, when I brought in this file, I guess it was another file, but you have to right click and then you have to release the clipping mask. In this case, there are not clipping masks, so I don't have to worry about that. But you'll notice when I come into this file that there is multiple sets of line weights here. And that's a lot of things to select. So you could come and select this line work and then come in here and make it nice and bold, 1. But again, there's additional line work here, and that just takes time to come back and select each line on its own. So yes, it does work as a series of poly surfaces, but it's also kind of an annoyance, and you're spending a lot of time cleaning up the line work in Illustrator, when in fact you should be doing a lot of this work within Rhino itself. So the first thing, if this was a file that came in from SketchUp, I think the first thing I would want to make this into active line work that I can manipulate in the future. So there's a couple ways you can do this. I can select this and type Dupe border, and then I create a series of line work. I'll just bring this down so I just see the line work. And then now this is line work that I can now come and manipulate. And then also when I print it, it's going to print a little bit better. And you'll notice all the curves did not. So I'm going to make sure I selected everything here. I can actually type in select curve and then hit the control, deselect, and then drag all these curves. Now this is just line work that, let's say teacher comes here and says, I'm not sure why the door is entering in there. Doesn't make much sense. So you can just come in here and let's see, change the position. You need to select these nodes here, select the curves, deselect that curve, and then you could, for instance, move this door, and I would maybe even use the extend command for this line to extend, select curve to extend, hit the boundary, extend, and then you're done. So now you're really working with line work. And additionally, along with this, you would probably also want to create additional layers here that are just your sort of drafting lines. So let's go ahead and create some drafting lines. And now what we're going to do is you're going to select the line work that is going to be cut in plan. So let's just say that this is the floor plan here. And I'm going to deselect anything that's not the main floor plan. And then I'm going to create a new layer called cut plan, or you could, whatever you want to call it. And then I'm going to have, so if I have the line selected, then I'm going to go to properties, then go to layers, and then hit cut plan. Now it's on cut plan. If I select this line, it should come up cut plan. Now I'll go to the layer and right click, set properties, and I'm going to do a print width of 1. Okay. And then maybe this other stuff, let's just call this secondary line work. So I'm going to go here and make a new layer and call this secondary. Cool. And then now it's on the default layer. I'm going to turn this to the secondary, come up to layers, go file, set properties, print width. And for the secondary, let's just start off with 0.5 and see how that looks. And then maybe you say that these lines are going to be, those are your kind of regulating lines. And so maybe you're going to make a new layer and just call these guides. And you could give that a gray, but we're just going to give this a hairline. Set properties. You could set the color, but for right now we'll just do a hairline. So something really thin. I didn't set the line weight for everything. This is really just to demonstrate the sort of difference here. I'm going to go to File, Print, and you'll notice if I hit raster, you can select raster and you can export this and maybe put it into Photoshop. But if you want to bring it directly into Illustrator and be able to manipulate the line work, then you need to make sure that this is a vector output. And we're looking good here, and I'm going to print this, and we're going to do plan 14. Jump over to Illustrator, File, and we're just going to open this file. Plan 14. All right. So again, it imported. I'm not sure why it's importing that. Someone's going to have to let me know why that's happening. But for right now, we're just going to press Shift and rotate it. So then you might ask yourself, oh, well, the doors went too dark. Probably the cut plan is a little bit too heavy at that scale. But now you notice when I select these curves, it's just one curve, you know, because that's how it was in the file, except for here I had that additional curve. But now you're just selecting one curve, and it's a lot easier to now go back and let's make that 1 point instead. And then the doors should definitely be a lot lighter. Let's put that at a lot less. So now you can, and again, because this line work wasn't one line in Rhino, it's messy in Illustrator. So I might come back here in Rhino, and because this was imported from SketchUp, it's sort of these line segments, but I could select these curves and then hit join. Now it's going to be one join curve, and Illustrator actually recognizes this. Okay, so there's one more thing that I wanted to point out, or one more option that you could do instead of doing the dupe border. You can also select these poly surfaces that you have here, and you can hit make 2D. And we're going to make this a 2D object, and you'll notice that I have the line work. I'm going to do this one more time, make 2D, and I'm going to do tangent lines, scene silhouette. No, press hidden lines there. Okay. So now you have a series of lines here. I wouldn't want these like that, so then I would just come over here and set it to the layer that you want. So in this case, it would be cut plan. So that's just an additional option for if you only have poly surfaces and no lines. It looks like the dupe border really was the way to go, and then coming back and redrawing and fixing some of that geometry, that would be probably the ideal thing to do. So that's basically the basic premise, is putting your layers on, putting your line work on layers, and then setting your layers by hitting right click, set properties, and the print width, and setting your print width based on that. One thing I would like to mention is that this does change based on your print scale. So for instance, if I set this line weight and now I go to, let's make this scale a 1/4 inch. I'm going to print, plan, and let's open this up, and you'll notice that now this line is reading a lot darker. And similarly, if I were to print this at, let's say I printed this at a really small scale, like let's say 1/64th, maybe not that small, let's go 1/32nd. Print, sure, override it. Now you see that that's a really thick scale. So what you can do is, if you know what scale you're going to be printing at, you can set your layers accordingly, and that's probably what you want to do. But then let's say you do have to change the size of the image last minute, or the scale changes. There is an option here that says the scale by, so you could either scale it down or scale it up. So let's say this printed too thick, I could now scale it by, let's do 0.5, so scale it by half the width, and then we're going to print this, and then it downsides that scale. Vice versa, if I come in and I hit print, and let's say I'm going to scale this by 3, just for demonstration's sake, come here, and now I have super thick lines. And then of course I can now bring this into Illustrator and adjust it. All right, so I hope that answered all your questions on just the basics on how to prepare the file in Rhino, and then how to bring it into Illustrator and make some final adjustments. Let me know if you have any questions, and stay tuned for more videos. Thank you.